Yep.
All right, I have 7 o'clock. We will call the town board meeting for July 1st, 2024 to order. First item on the agenda is the approval. Patrick, any changes?
No additions or subtractions from staff, Mr. Chair.
Does the board have anything?
Not for me.
Nothing.
Hearing none, I need a motion to approve.
Move to approve the agenda.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? And then item 3 is approval of payment of bills. You sign
I
up for it?
signed them. Move to approve payment of the bills.
I will second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Yeah, I just noticed something. Now that both you guys have the same last name, I can't initial everything.
That's right.
All right, approval of minutes of June 17th, 2024. Anybody have any changes?
I saw none. I'll move to approve the minutes of the June 17th, 2024 meeting.
I will second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries. All right, we have 5 consent agenda items. Everybody feel comfortable with them?
Yeah,
Yes.
I looked at those and seems in order. Looks like we're going to redo 3 baseball fields.
Yeah.
All right, I would move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oh, that motion carries. All right, moving on. Old business, item 6, the Rice Creek Watershed District boundary change. I had a long discussion with Phil Bellafori at our Velamo meeting. It seems like, it looks like Velamo may actually even gain a few properties. So they're pleased with the boundary changes. But he said it's not quite final yet, but he didn't see a problem with us signing the, I believe it's a resolution. So I didn't have any other questions. So that was the only thing I was concerned about.
Okay. And we've talked about this
Yep.
several occasions.
So, the question I'll ask, if they are finally in agreement on it, whether we approve it or not, will they send us something so for our records that, or we didn't,
They're really good about that stuff, yes.
and then we'll get their findings?
Yep.
Okay.
All right, if there's no other discussion, I need a motion for the resolution.
I'll move to pass the resolution for the boundaries of Rice Creek Watershed District boundary changes.
With Velamo, and I will second that.
All right, motion's made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, moving on. Item 6B, the condemnation property and EDA land acquisition discussion.
Yes. Mr. Chair, the board did direct staff to contact the agent who was brokering the property at 5297 Hugo Road. I was made aware that there was an offer pending on the property approximately a week ago. I received a follow-up message from the agent who was brokering the property, asking if so there was some kind of a delay in the purchase of the land with the potential buyer, and asked that the township would be willing to pay full list price of $159,900. Chad, you have comments from a legal perspective that you would like to enlighten us with, I'm sure.
The only real comment I have is you can't pay more than the appraised value of the property, so I'll have to get it appraised.
Okay. So if I notify the real estate agent of that, that's probably going to,
Well, what I suggest the wording would be this: you can contact them and saying it's contingent upon the property appraising for the agreed upon purchase price.
okay.
But who's responsible? Would we have it done, or would they have it done, or the real
We'd have
estate
it done.
company? We would?
I'm sorry, we would have.
We would be the town, yeah, the town would have to have it done.
So, Chad,
Yes.
can we, contingent on all of this, can we move forward with getting the appraisal if he's agreeable to what you're talking?
Yeah, I would suggest you pass a resolution or a motion just directing staff to have the property appraised.
Happy to do so.
Okay, no other questions. I mean, it's to even out Four Seasons Park there.
Yep.
Right.
It was in the long-range plans, was it? Not included in it? How do you remember?
I don't recall it should have been. As far as this property and actually the 2 properties on Park Avenue there that are at the corner of the park, and maybe it's a good idea to have the park board have a discussion about these properties and maybe inventory some other parks and see if there's something similar where there's, in this case, there's a private property that juts out into the park with a dilapidated home, so.
move forward with this, Tom, you probably don't know this, but it did come up at a park board meeting already when it
Oh.
first was listed.
Good.
And they wanted to know why the township wasn't proceeding with acquisition. And I said, because we've kind of took the position, we weren't going to be in the real estate business unless it was necessary, not knowing that maybe it was to our benefit to do that. So they were pushing to say we should buy that property already, so.
Fantastic.
Okay. So if I can talk to the real estate agent tomorrow, let him know that the board's position is that we can't purchase it for anything more than it's been appraised for. If he says that that's still in the realm of possibility, should I order the appraisal and go forward with that?
I think that would be our motion, basically.
That'd be our
Okay.
motion. At the same time, in their disclosures, do they have to disclose if there is like a cistern and all this other hidden stuff that we wouldn't know unless?
I'm sure they have to legally,
You have
right?
to disclose wells,
Okay.
and whether it's served by a private septic system or private sewer system or a public sewer system.
Well, actually, staff could also look up if there's any pending water and sewer charges. And
Sure.
Then I'd make a motion that we have staff move forward with the appraisal and details behind whatever we call it, for the condemned property and EDA land acquisition at 5297 Google Road to expand our park.
And we would use park acquisition funds for this, I would assume, since it is going to potentially, we'd have to solidify what we're going to use it for in order to use those types of
Yeah,
funds.
yes, you would have to
Okay, so,
adopt a resolution explaining why you're acquiring it.
okay. So we don't have to worry about that for now. I know we've got the cash to do it in both accounts, EDA and Park Act, so,
I can speak a little bit for the park board when they were looking at it as a parking lot addition, because there really is not a lot of parking
there
in
isn't.
that park.
Yep,
To include the baseball fields across the road, plus the tennis court and now pickleball courts there. So
Oh.
that was their idea as to why we should go forward with it.
okay. We will do so.
all right, so that was your motion?
Yes.
Want a second?
I will second that.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Thanks,
All right.
guys.
Item 7, public hearing, we have none, so we'll move on to new business. 8A is a joint powers agreement with Lino Lakes for a water sewer hookup. This
Yes,
is
Mr.
Hobie
Chair.
Court.
We do have Dave Sorensen here to join the board in conversation regarding this topic. We discussed it at our executive committee, and it seemed like we had some consensus at that point in order to move forward with this. Dave, you want to back us into this with a little outline of what it is we're going for?
Before we go much farther, I
Okay.
did make some minor amendments to the agreement.
Okay.
Nothing material. Here, Pat, here's one for you, too.
Okay. Anyway, Dave, you want to help us out to that?
Well, essentially, this,
Hey, Dave, you want to come up to the podium? Just state your name and address for the record.
Oh, thanks, Jim.
Dave Sorensen, 7 Bald Eagle Point. So this property it's owned by Frank and Sue Grover, and it's in 3 counties.
Good
They
God, really?
originally bought the Anoka parcel, and then when Mr. Brody passed away after they were developing Hobie, then evidently the heirs or the estate of the Brodies went to them as kind of the only buyer for the Ramsey and the Washington parcel. And it's been sitting, and they wanted to sell it, and my wife and I said we'd help them with it. They're neighbors of ours too, so we have a purchase agreement for it with a couple that is planning to build, but they wanted to hook up to city sewer and water, which only makes sense. It's on the lake, and we don't need any more septic systems in the area. They already have plans drawn. They have a site plan prepared that we're ready to go to Lino Lakes with. This afternoon, I had a request for the deeds to be, so we sent those over to
Yep.
Riley.
Thank you.
And then they're planning to come in tomorrow morning and have their signatures notarized if we pass tonight.
It's all been arranged.
This is something that was, when sewer and water was finally sent out to Hobie Court, this was identified as the best for this home outside the
Yeah,
township.
definitely.
Or a home for this lot, anyway. So this
How
is,
many years ago do you think that was, Tom?
I don't remember
Bill
from
was,
those TKDA
Real
drawings
short.
Yeah, it was,
where they were dated.
At least 10 years ago.
yeah, it was more than 10.
So
Might have been
I'm saying
20.
it's not something to just opt out.
Right, right.
So we were aware of this, that this would happen someday, so.
All right, Chad, what were the only corrections
The
you
only
made?
change was this, I had to correct that fact that the property is both in Anoka and Washington County. Added Exhibit A, didn't have Exhibit A till this afternoon, and also corrected the spelling of the owners' names. That was it. So other than that, those are just minor changes. The language itself stays, the material language stays as is.
All right, any other questions of Dave? Tom? All right, thanks, sir.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
All right, this is a pretty straightforward request, especially since we had committed whatever year we did put the stubs in, so.
Okay.
So is
Board have
this-
any other questions or comments?
So we're going to approve tonight, is it the amended joint powers agreement? that-
It should be the amended one. Or actually, it's not amended because you haven't even adopted it yet.
Oh,
But it'd
Good
be
point.
this version,
this version.
version number 2.
Final version submitted this evening.
Yes.
Mine just disappeared. Disappeared. Okay.
With the changes noted by the township attorney.
Exactly.
Yep.
All right.
And we will notarize this tomorrow at 9:30 with you guys.
Well, maybe.
No, you and I can do it separately. They have to do it.
Now, and you'll fill out the page, the third paragraph on page 2 with all the costs,
You got it.
because that hasn't been filled out yet.
Okay.
But hey, set fees anyway.
Yep. Okay.
Did you move that, Steve?
So we're going to, I'll make a motion to approve the joint powers agreement between the town of White Bear and the city of Lino Lakes with the noted changes of tonight.
All right, do I have a second?
I will second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right,
Thanks.
thanks, sir.
Dave, see you tomorrow morning.
All right, last item on the agenda, joint powers agreement with North Oaks, extension of water and sewer services. Patrick, you gonna give us a overview of this?
I'm going to defer to Mark Hauge, who is in the audience here, to speak about his potential project.
Evening, Mark.
Hello,
Hey, Mark.
Mark Hauge, and I'm with North Oaks Company at 5959 Centerville Road. I do have a couple of things. I'm not sure if you received them. I have a drawing showing I'll ask for, would you like me to distribute these?
Please do so.
Are those updated, or are those the same that we have in our packet?
I'm not sure what you've seen. This is the map that has been discussed relative to the memo of understanding with one minor proposed change.
Mark, you're killing trees.
I know, this really makes Doug and Murray upset.
Thank you.
but,
It's all right.
And then I also have a letter from the fire marshal,
Okay.
useful. Just by way of background, if you recall, we signed a development agreement with the city of North Oaks back in 1999. And we had 1,600 acres roughly to start with. We agreed with the city to set aside 900 acres with a permanent conservation easement and develop 12 neighborhoods around the edges. We were unclear at the time we signed that agreement whether we would extend municipal sewer and water to what we call Red Forest Way. They have a provision in their comp plan that allows us to do so. We have to get the map amended with Met Council that accurately reflects that. My understanding is you've executed a memo of understanding to update the joint powers agreement between White Bear Township and the city of North Oaks. And the map that's attached to that does not have this one area included. So we consulted with Patrick and Chad, and they suggested that I come before you and ask if you would be okay to amend that map to include these lots, which are the ones outlined in yellow. These are the last lots that North Oaks Company can develop in North Oaks, literally. And the development is 33 lots total. They're all larger than an acre and a half. We actually did this in 2 phases. The first phase was 16 lots, and somebody stepped forward and bought all 16 lots with the understanding that they would have to install well and septic. We've since finished phase 2, or in the process of finishing phase 2. And in talking with the city of North Oaks and the Lake Johanna Fire Department, they wanted us to extend water into that area to service these last 17 lots. So we can do one of 2 things. We have to loop the water, so that would enable us to have water going past 30 of the 33 lots. And we could either connect to the last 17 lots, or if you are okay with it, we would make it available to, I guess it would be the 13 that have already been sold, a total of 31 actually, 14 more. So we are in front of the Met Council right now. If you may recall, they asked for a letter or some acknowledgement by White Bear Township that you would allow us to connect to your water systems. We had talked with them about just sanitary sewer going back about a year ago when you were concerned about things going on in the White Bear Lake lawsuit and so forth, and preferred not to have us connect. I guess we're back to ask if you would reconsider that at this point. We have worked through all the issues with Met Council. We just have to go through the final formal approval on the sanitary sewer. But they had a question about density, and we answered their questions. Now we have to go back and get their approval. The city of North Oaks City Council supports this, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Steve?
I'm going to pause for a question right now. Listening.
Generally speaking, how does this correlate with the court action lawsuit?
Well, the real issue is, do we have capacity? Just keep in mind, the DNR has made it quite clear that they're not going to amend the permits to allow us to pump more water. Whatever we have, that's going to be it.
And that's the other piece of that, is that we still have North Oaks Company has undeveloped property on Township side of Central Road, yet to be determined usage, which would apply to capacity also. But we are dedicated to our own citizens, so, you know, I'm concerned about extending it beyond what we've already agreed to.
Mark, you said that all the lots in yellow are divided so they can sustain a private septic system?
Yeah, so half of them basically on the north side actually were sold to people with the understanding they'd have to put septic and well in. And the only reason we're even considering allowing them to connect to water is in order to loop the water back, it's going to be running right past their lots. It's not something we're obligated to provide, nor are you. We'd be happy if we had approval for the 17 lots in phase 2. The fire marshal is very excited about the possibility of finally having some water into the east side of North Oaks. As you see in the map, if the water would be extended to that most westerly point, which is Catbird Lane, which gets him a lot further into North Oaks for fire protection. And that's been a kind of an ongoing challenge for the fire department. Thankfully, we haven't had any big fires lately. We did talk to Dale in a meeting that we convened earlier, I guess it was last week.
Yep.
And he said to me, and I think others heard this, that he believes the township has capacity, given its 17 lots of, in a community of 11,000 connections. So he didn't see the capacity as an issue from his point of view, but obviously that's not his decision, that's your decision.
That's accurate. He said that.
What's this development called?
Red Forest Way.
Red Forest Way. We call it Red Forest Way South, and this is the last development in North Oaks. So this maybe will be the last time that you have me coming to you asking for water in North Oaks. We'll be back to talk about White Bear Township. We're excited about that industrial project.
Will this be accessed through the condominiums?
Yeah, so the water right now is looped to the cul-de-sac where the condominium is. So we'd have to extend into that parcel, which we call Island Field, and then make the connection at the cul-de-sac.
But don't you have another phase for those condominiums?
Yeah, there is plans for phase 2. So it was a total of 73 units, of which 34 are currently built.
So besides this Red Forest, we'd be adding another 73 with the new phase 2? Am I getting that right?
So the township has already approved the 70, it's actually, 74 units. That was approved several years back.
That's for the condo.
Right, that's the condominium.
That's the one that's built right now?
Half of it is.
Yeah, half of it.
All right, I got you.
And then, so this is literally the last connections we'll be asking for. So it's either 17 lots or 31 lots, whichever you're comfortable with.
The abutting lots are all developed west of the development as proposed here,
Yeah, so
all on well and septic.
yes.
Any idea septic issues?
Yeah, there continue to be challenges in the older properties. Anything that was probably built in the last 20 years is just fine.
Yeah.
Because the city requires us to show where there could be 2 different septic fields.
State
It's only in those properties that were probably built in the 50s and 60s where you're starting to see challenges finding a suitable area for another septic.
Any discussion at the city level regarding extending it from here? Any interest?
Well, the mayor and members of the city council are exploring the feasibility, kind of in the 50-year plan, as to, what could it look like bringing sewer and water into North Oaks. And North Oaks Company has talked with St. Paul Regional Water as well, given all the water comes through North Oaks, and right now North Oaks doesn't take advantage of any of that. So we've tried to figure out ways to collaborate with St. Paul Regional Water to distribute water from the south coming into North Oaks, but those conversations are in the early stages. We're also collaborating with the Northeast Metro Group that's working on trying to find a water solution.
I mean, it seems fairly clear and obvious that ultimately the state, whoever, Department of Natural Resources would like us all to switch to surface water, Mississippi surface water. So, that's our long-range planning too, is to move to a water source, different water source. That's another reluctance.
Mark, explain to me, the Met Council's comp plan shows this area as well in septic, correct?
The area in yellow
Right.
was submitted by the city of North Oaks to get approval for their 2040 comp plan. In the narrative, it says that if sewer and water is available, it's allowable to connect, but they did not have that reflected in their maps. So we had to go back to the city had to go back to the Met Council and say we'd like to amend our comp plan to change the map to include this area. And then there was a long discussion about whether the city of North Oaks met the policy of Met Council to get 3 units per acre. And we've since resolved that to demonstrate to Met Council that we do have 3 units per acre in the areas that are considered emerging suburban edge. So the majority of North Oaks is in, I think they call it rural. And then what's considered inside their MUSA line is called out as emerging suburban edge. So that'd be basically all these projects along Centerville. And if you do the math, we meet the 3 units per acre, and they've acknowledged that, and now we just have to go through a formal approval process with them.
Okay, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yeah, 'cause now I'm a little confused.
So Chad, before we get to any further discussion on the details, can we talk a little bit about logistics, about specifically what North Oaks LLC is asking for? They're asking for an amendment to the most recent JPA that we worked through over the last year with the city, correct?
Right. I mean, it's actually pretty straightforward.
Okay.
They're seeking an amendment to the map, which sets forth the service area, which sets forth the homes that can connect, or well, that, I know you back it up. It's a little, it is easy, but give me a second. We, under the memorandum of understanding, we adopted a map that shows what areas, what homes can hook up to the system that North Oaks is going to maintain to provide water. And that water is coming from us. So all we're doing is be amending that map to include this new area. That's it. Other than that, all the other terms stay the same.
Well, as of January of next year, we're not going to have any control over how much water they're using. All we're going to have control of is what we sell water to North Oaks.
Well, actually, we would have control over the amount of water because we can shut them off if they.
That may be true, but we don't have a way of monitoring it because we're not going to have water meters in all these homes that we can monitor.
We're going to have a master meter on each connection.
Correct.
And simple math will tell us how much water they're using.
Because now, again, these folks would have to know they would have to be under our regulation for like sprinkling.
That's right. That's part of the deal.
And right now, your, what is the one right off the end of H2, like Spring Farm, they're abusing that water regulation all the time. Every time I go by there, sprinklers are on at 2 in the afternoon.
I would concur with that. They have no regard for our time zones of water.
Well, actually, so we're clear, the city of North Oaks has to adopt our water conservation regulations. If they fail to do so, they violated the memorandum of understanding, which simply cut them off.
Yeah, because that 7590 is court ordered, and we're trying to make that. But if all of a sudden we're just pushing a lot of water into the North Oaks company or the city of North Oaks, and they're not following our regulations, then that's going to hurt our numbers.
So that was going to be my question to you, Chad, is when we ran just a quick analysis of water usage this last year between the township and city of North Oaks, city of North Oaks, or residents that are hooked up to our water right now are almost double the 7590 and double what it is township residents are using.
Right.
I'm concerned about the city's ability, North Oaks, not LLC, enforcing that problem. And if and maybe this is a small enough development where it's not going to make that big of an impact, but my confidence level isn't high. Let's just say that.
The point you're all raising tonight is the exact point that the administrative law judge raised for those municipalities that serve areas outside their own jurisdiction. How do they control that water? And in this case, the memorandum of understanding, the new JPA that'll be based on the memorandum of understanding is going to have to indicate that you are going to, that the city must follow the 7590. And if they violate that, we'll have to decide how bad the violation, how bad the violation has to be, that the JPA will terminate, and so will the supply of water.
For my clarification, so if it is violent, what does it terminate? How much notice?
Well, we haven't decided. That hasn't been decided yet. So that's something you decide. I would suspect you'd have to give them 30. Somewhere. 30 is kind of short, but I'd say 60 days.
Because our water tier is based on overusage. If you get charged more if you use more.
Yep.
Well, are they just going to say, fine, charge us more? We're going to use what we want? I don't know.
No, that's why I'm recommending that the new JPA include rules that if the city violates the 7590 rule, actually I don't want to say the city, it's actually if the residents violate that rule, and the city does nothing about it, then we're simply going to terminate their access to our water.
And I don't want to be on this board when we'd have to do something like that.
No, I don't know.
Nobody here wants that to do that.
It's an ugly thought, but conservation is very loud and clear in the judge's ruling to start with.
Those are the rules we have to live with, and if we have to live by those rules, they have to live by those rules. Yeah, well, that's 7590, that's a definite. That's there.
I guess the only thing that bothers me about this whole thing, the Met Council okayed this for septic and well. So you can go ahead with this project without our water, correct?
Well, they okayed the septic and well for the total area, yes. But the soils are such that we cannot use septic systems for the second phase. A lot of those lots were graded, and it was probably where the deer were, and that also contributed to the compaction of the soil.
Oh.
So we had to,
We don't have any deer here in the township.
no, they weren't your deer, they were,
I think we have 2. You've been told 2.
yeah, so we basically had to connect to sanitary sewer because septic did not work in the phase 2.
Okay, so then you could use Met Council and their sewer and their main down Centerville, but you could still do wells?
We could still do wells, yes, that would just mitigate.
Technically, you don't really have to have our water. That's what I'm getting at.
No, that's true, other than for fire protection.
Yeah, and
Lake Johanna made it, they're clear that they would very much love to have some hydrants in this area.
So if I can just comment on a couple of things. So I totally get what you're saying about the water usage in Spring Farm right now. What typically happens in other communities I've worked on is that cities or townships allow for the initial summer to establish the sod, and then it's cut way back after that. And, we're installing meter pits at every development. The good news is most of these developments have an HOA with one centralized water source, so it's a lot easier to control than maybe a wrap farm is different because they're making individual connections on each lot. But Spring Farm, there's, I think 2 meters. And we could even look at putting a deduct meter somewhere that would enable, the beauty of Spring Farm, I guess, is you could continue to develop domestic potable water and turn off the lawn irrigation water because there are 2 separate systems. And the same thing with Hill Farm condominiums. Press Homes already uses wells. They don't use any of the township's water for their lawn irrigation. Trying to think, Villas of Wilkinson Lake, same thing. We could turn off the water to the lawn irrigation system and just provide potable water if that became an issue.
We don't know if it will be.
And my understanding is the city of North Oaks, Kevin Kress in particular, is committed to enforce your rules that are imposed upon the city. I mean, he's signing the agreement that basically says city of North Oaks has to follow your water conservation efforts.
Mark, I'm sorry if this is a stupid question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Do any of LLC's developments in city of North Oaks have covenants to them? They do.
Yep. All of them.
Maybe this is an opportunity to find some new level of enforcement on water usage through covenants.
That's out of our jurisdiction. I'm not sure how we.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, Chad, don't you think we'd have an opportunity there?
Covenants are contracts. And it would be possible to write a term that made us a part of that contract for this purpose.
We really have, we could work in some language to have some real enforcement capability there. Because Mark, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, Kevin and we've worked with Kevin and Tom Watson for the last year and a half working on this JPA. And we've all said at every meeting, we have the enforcement language and components. We don't have any way to execute it right now. And if Kevin's got a way, he hasn't told us about it. So, so we're both challenged there, and we've really kind of knocked our heads together here for the last year and a half, trying to come up with a way to do that. We thought we'd solved it, but then the opinion from the courts changed, and we had to go a different direction. Now we don't have any enforcement on it again. So I don't know. I mean, this is maybe it's a chance to work some language into that.
Well, another problem, which I'm not sure why it's taking so long, but I think there's 9 connections that where you've got to meter along Centerville Road, which means as of January next year, North Oak, the city of North Oak is going to be responsible for their own lift stations, maintenance, everything, SCADA, whatever. So, and yet we haven't even seen any plans yet to start this project. So
Yeah.
we're like, we've talked about this for over a year. They still are, I don't know why they're dragging their feet. So that doesn't make us feel any more comfortable either here. But I do,
Comment on that, or?
I wish Dale were here. I think they are moving on it, but it's not at a rate that we'd
they're not
like
going to be done by January.
I don't think so. But I mean, we've spoken about extending terms to them so that they can complete that if they're showing a willful intent to get it done. We're going to work with them as best we can. But you're right. I mean, I was hoping that by this time, we're 6 months out from the enactment of the JPA, that it would be substantially completed, so we could be working through bugs right now. But it's not. I mean, it's just kind of the reality of things that we're waiting on.
Could we compromise somehow and just get one service line for water for fire hydrants and not service the whole project with water for the homes? Is that a possibility? That would solve the fire hazard issue. You guys can still do wells on your property. You already got Met Council approval to do the sewer, and maybe that's the whole package tied up that way. Then we're not committing to water for another whatever number of lots we got going here.
What's the advantage to the city supplied water as opposed to well and septic from your perspective, Mark?
So it's interesting. People who buy lots are most concerned about sanitary sewer and septic. Water is something that people like to have, municipal water. Mm-hmm. It's easier. You don't have to put in a large filtering system because it's hard water in that location. We've sold many lots with sanitary sewer connections and wells, and we could do that. It's just that the having domestic water and fire protection to these lots is strongly preferred. It's not the end of the world if they don't have it. I mean, it's unfortunate, every time we've gotten a project approved by the city, the fire department's been really clamoring to get fire hydrants, and up until now, we have them at Spring Farm and places that are where we have municipal water. Generally, we don't have any situations where there's fire water where there's not also municipal potable water. But
Well, with all this water issuing, I think someone would appreciate that because they can water whenever they want because they're not restricted to that gallonage usage.
From an individual homeowner's perspective, municipal water is much preferred versus because it lowers their insurance rates.
I was just going to ask you that, Mr. Insurance.
Yes, it does. Because the fire class, every home is categorized by the fire class of water to get in case there is a fire. The hydrants certainly would help just with that piece versus individual. I mean, from the fire department's perspective, that's their priority, is to have fire. Otherwise, they have to transport water, which slows down the ability to service a major fire. So there is an incentive to have municipal water.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're a new homeowner building back in this Red Forest way and you're looking for homeowner's insurance, is your rate going to be better if there's a serviceable fire extinguisher or fire hydrants there? Okay.
Fire class.
Yep.
That's why all throughout any municipality, the fire hydrants are strategically located.
Yep.
Because they've rated how much they can connect up, how fast they can efficiently suppress a fire. And so the closer, the more reasonable the rates. The further away, if you're out where there are no fire hydrants, you're in an unprotected area and more chance of a total loss.
by way of a compromise, knowing that there's concern about capacity, we would accept 17 versus 31 lots if that was more palatable.
Is this a HOA area?
We haven't decided yet. In this case, it is under the North Oaks Homeowners Association, which, to Patrick's point, if I would be happy to work with both the city and the Homeowners Association, and I'm president of the board of the sub-association for Spring Farm. I'm happy to work with you and the city and the HOAs to put enforcement procedures in place. The nice thing about having all of these lots within the North Oaks Homeowners Association is if they have a requirement of their members and the members don't meet those requirements, they have lien rights. So in other words, there could be penalties, and if they try to sidestep those penalties, the Homeowners Association can file a lien on their property. So they do have a lot of leverage, to Patrick's point.
So if you want to get in between all of those organizations, do you have a flak jacket?
I'm kind of used to it. But
And you're a glutton for punishment.
So if it,
in all seriousness, I take this water conservation issue very seriously. I mean, I live on White Bear Lake. There's nothing I would like to see more than to solve this problem. So I'm personally committed as well as.
if it is an HOA, would it have a centralized irrigation system?
Yes, well, in the case of, we haven't decided what to do with Red Forest Way, but to your point, we could set it up that way because we haven't made that determination. It clearly is a centralized lawn irrigation system for Spring Farm, Hill Farm condos, Press Homes. Those are the three bigger users. And I don't know that we can do anything at this point with, well, what you could do, somebody would not like me for saying this, but and typically in commercial buildings, you have a deduct meter where you measure the amount of water that's used for consumption in the building versus lawn irrigation. And, the idea there is they'll save on sanitary sewer costs,
Sure.
but you could impose that on residents of Rat Farm, and then you would know exactly how much water they're using for lawn irrigation.
Is there any way to do a surface water irrigation system? It looks like there's a pond there. I don't know.
Well, yeah, that's the other thing. We finally figured it out, I think, to use surface water for our project in Lino Lakes, just by virtue of the density and the way the ponds will be laid out. We may have a solution for Spring Farm. We've been working on this for 2 years. We've been consulting Hugo, and they figured it out, and we hired their engineer, WSB, to try to figure out how we can use the stormwater runoff at Spring Farm for lawn irrigation. I can't say, standing here, that we've got it all figured out, but we're close.
Even the township is looking at doing that same concept at our Polo Lakes Park.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we need to start having these builders, you got to enforce this a little bit more so they can stay out of our groundwater.
I was going to say, at the same time, to keep that in the back of your head for the town, the east side of Centerville Road projects that you may have, that we are looking for ways to use stormwater for any irrigation.
So I'm glad you mentioned that, Steve, because one of the ideas we have for the Park 35E project, working with Endeavor, is to capture all of that runoff in underground tanks and actually pipe it over to Spring Farm, because industrial developments typically don't have green grass. They don't have much of a need for lawn irrigation, but they have a lot of impervious surface between roofs, parking lots, loading docks. And so it's the most obvious opportunity to try to capture all that runoff from all those impervious surfaces and try to use it for lawn irrigation. They don't need the lawn irrigation water, but across the street, we need it for Spring Farm. So we're trying to figure out how we do that. That's one of the things we're working on.
There's a big one of those projects at Rice Street and Hudson Road, I think, over just south of 96. You can see that they're putting basically underground tanks to catch all the surface water.
And where is that located?
Off of County Road, if you could hit County Road F straight towards Hudson Road,
Okay.
right to the left. There was a big pit there and they're
Oh, I'll have to go check that out. I'm not familiar with that project.
in by now. But anyway, going back to this,
Mr. Chair. Like I said a few minutes ago, I think we have, in theory, an opportunity here to look into some enforcement capability. And I don't know what it does in terms of committing to this proposal at this point, but I think if Mr. Hauge is willing to broker some kind of agreement amongst parties that would benefit the township's overall usage of water and how it is registered in our legal agreements, I think we at least got to let them have an opportunity to talk through that.
well, from my perspective, I hate to have no water there for fire protection. At the very least, as the chair pointed out, maybe you can leave at least tonight knowing that I think fire protection
Sure, I think we all agree
is
upon that.
doable, in my mind. A 75/90 is, that's for our personal consumption, but a fire is a fire and it's not gonna alter it tremendously. You're not gonna have a total loss through 30, generally, from 32 homes, or whatever the number is.
One thing I'm hearing tonight is the fact that it's time to get the restated JPA in place, because we're now 6 months
6
away,
months.
actually. So I'll get working on that.
Can I offer two other quick comments? I would be happy to help to move the city along on these metering pits, because we talk with them almost weekly about all things sewer and water, and I'll get an update on
Patrick,
that.
our last meeting's been what, 3 months ago?
Two.
2?
I don't know, Mark also mentioned a compromise of not the full 32 properties, but something less than that, along with some language that enforces use. I think we at least explore it, you guys.
In that regard, Mark, can I ask you a real quick question? So would be your intent then to stub all those that are, if we took half of them, the 16 that you're talking about, would you stub those for the future? For sewer and water?
So we took a risk and put the pipe in the ground. So it's there.
It's there.
And we had to make a choice whenever that was last fall. Are you asking about?
So your infrastructure is there for the future for all these lots?
Right. It's not connected to anything. It basically terminates on the south end. There's a gap between where the water comes to the condos and where it would start. Are you asking about the additional?
I was just asking, because you said there's 16 that are, or have approved for sewer or septics and wells.
Oh, yeah.
Are those all stubbed for the future too?
Not all of them. Some are just where we had to loop the water. We had to go right past them. But those, we already sold those lots to an individual with the understanding, kind of a crazy situation, but with the understanding that it's well and septic. And so it would be,
Somebody's problem for the future
Yeah.
it would be.
at some point. So the major question tonight is, would we consider hooking up sewer and water, or water only? What are you asking for?
So my understanding is previously the township was comfortable with the sanitary sewer connections, but not with the water. This was when we were before you about a year ago. And now since we've had to go through all these gyrations with the Met Council, which I'm sure you can appreciate, we withdrew our original application because they didn't know that we met the density policy. Once we demonstrated to them that we did meet the density policy, then they said our policy or our practice requires you to resubmit. So now we're resubmitting with the understanding that they will approve it because they've done all their homework. And we thought we should add water to it as long as we're resubmitting. And so that's why I'm here tonight.
So they're looking for, so the Met Council would be appeased with an amendment to our current JPA. Is that what you're telling me?
I think with the last go around, all they were asking for was some written confirmation that you would consider extending water if all parties concerned approve, meaning the city, Met Council. They don't need the JPA executed. They just want to know what the township's position.
So the JPA would be needed to be executed essentially after all that work has been done.
Yep.
So it's not an unconditional agreement to provide water. It's conditional upon all parties reaching an agreement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're not looking for us to amend the JPA tonight?
No.
Okay.
All right. Sounds like it's an
Well,
agreement
plus too,
to
that does
agree.
give us a chance to review a couple of different options then. Whether we could get at least water for fire protection, and if the board's comfortable, maybe half the lots, or some, one or the other, or a mix of whatever. So I don't know, how do you want to proceed with this, Patrick?
Boy, I don't know if we really need a resolution or anything tonight.
No, I'm just saying it's staff-wise.
Well, staff-wise?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Probably just a motion directing staff to, for further review.
sure. Work with LLC and the
say,
city and,
Yeah, to determine whether or not there's a capacity to provide the services and what other regulatory requirements have to be
okay,
dealt
so
with.
I don't want to get bogged down in minutia tonight because I'm sure we're
Yeah.
going to have plenty of opportunity to do that. But Mark did correctly state already that Dale, our public works director, has already said we have the capacity. At this point, it's just a decision as to whether or not it's an appropriate use of that. I think Chad's heading down the right path, giving directed to staff to work amongst these parties to find out if the township is comfortable with the impact on its overall water use.
I think so. The motion you probably want to adopt is along the lines Pat just laid out, which would be directing staff to enter into a study with North Oaks and North Oaks Company to determine whether or not it's feasible to provide water, water services to then however many lots, to this new addition, and define I would append this map to your motion so you know what we're talking about.
And I think we should stick with the 17 lots that Mark threw out as kind of a compromise and not bite off more than we can chew immediately. I think it's a little more managed, more realistic with just half of those.
And then in the meantime, Chad, would you be able to work up some letter that the Met Council is looking for that the board's comfortable with?
Sure.
That's a hell of a motion, Steve.
Two motions. First motion would be a motion simply to direct staff
Got that one.
to
To
work
enter into a
with,
study with North Oaks city staff and North Oaks Company to provide water for 17 lots.
examine the feasibility of providing water
Yes. I said feasibility to provide
To 17
water.
lots.
to 17 lots, yes.
And the second one we have to is to do something with the amended map.
Well, no, that, you'd actually add that map as an appendment, as an annex, give me a second here. You'd append a appendix to that motion.
So noted.
Okay.
Appendix to that motion.
Appendix to motion.
And what's the
The second would be direct me to prepare a letter for board approval, directed to the Met Council explaining the township's position regarding water.
I'll make that motion to direct the attorney to prepare a letter to the Met Council that we're engaged in discussion for water.
Want to second that, Tom?
I will second that.
All right. Motion made, second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Now you want to go back to the first one?
Yeah. I would, what you had set up with the 17, but I'd also like to reference the 34 to consider that as an alternative and see what the difference in the impact is for consideration.
So
I think it was 32.
Let's see, I got to do the math. It
it was
was
33?
I thought it was
31 exactly. It's 33 total, less 2 because the 2 are too far away to make any connections.
So that's
Not practical.
Okay.
31.
I don't want to dismiss that totally. I'd like us to look at that and see what the difference is. And
Okay.
has engineer staff ever looked at, here's our usage now, here's our capacity.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Can we define what that means, the difference, and quantify what's 17 lots? I'd be interested.
That's maybe why Dale had already
Yep.
confirmed that.
Yeah, you can, yeah. Well, and it's obvious it's based on future development of town properties, and we don't know, other than they're industrial, but some use this much, so.
Okay. So I'm sorry, Mark, just to clarify, going forward, I thought 15 of these lots were already being built with septic.
16.
16, okay. And we've got those identified, right?
They are, I did not provide you that map, but I can provide
Okay.
that to you tomorrow.
So I'm just getting to what Tom's point was, is that, I mean, can we look at the other half if they've already been established as properties with septic, and are they being sold under that premise?
Yes.
Okay,
So I can tell you definitively that we had a soils engineer check to make sure that all of the lots in phase 1 of Red Forest Way South had soils suitable for septic.
got it.
And we had a buyer step forward
Okay.
and buy them. Believe it or not, they bought 16.
Jeez.
It's somebody you might have read about in the newspaper. And with the understanding they were going to put well and septic. The interesting thing is they are not planning to build on them. It's the long-term investment.
Oh,
So they may never build a house on those lots in our lifetime, but I
is
can't
this
stand here and say for sure they won't, but that's what they've told me.
the Cargill purchase?
It sounds like that.
Okay.
Yeah, we've been hearing that.
That's right.
Tossed around.
That's right.
We've heard that.
Yeah, so, but anyway, so there were 16 in phase 1, 2 of which we cannot do anything about. We could potentially connect 14, and then phase 2 is 17, so that equals 31.
Got it. Okay.
But the 31, or the 17, we would definitely prefer to have water along with the sanitary sewer.
I need some aspirin.
We've already did our 2 motions, but I think
Well, no, we haven't finalized the
we
first
haven't
one.
finalized the first one.
I just confused the first one. Sorry.
Okay, so you want to add a second part that we also consider a comparison for the whatever the number was, 17 lots to the 31 lots.
Yes.
You're accepting
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
Board Members Redessel's amendment,
Amendment.
Friendly amendment.
friendly amendment, yes.
Yeah, I'll
Oh, no, it's hostile.
All right, I'm sure Megan will figure all this out once you go through the minutes.
Sorry, Megan.
Poor Megan.
All right, the motion's been made and amended. Do I have a second?
and second it.
You gonna
I will second that,
All right.
yes, with the amendment.
So
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Whoops.
You're fine. Go ahead and just for clarity.
It passed already, too late.
Yep, that's fine. So for clarity's sake, you weren't asking for staff and LLC representatives in the city to decide which of the halves would be more. You want to look at one half and then all.
Yes.
Okay.
What's the difference?
Got it.
What's the impact?
Phase 1 and phase 2, basically.
Got it.
Yes.
Okay.
Or
It's
alternate 1,
much
alternate
clearer
I
2.
don't want to dismiss phase 2 without some research.
Going back just to take away, it would be probably in your best interest as, because you say you haven't decided yet, to look at how you would separate the irrigation from the
Right.
consumer consumption, because it's an ongoing.
We do have a nice large storm pond. I don't know if it shows
At
up
Black
on
Lake.
there. It's in this development, and it's surprising the amount of water in there. Plus, we did a
well this year.
well, even last year, because we pumped water out of it to irrigate the trees in Spring Farm, and we were amazed at how much water was collected. Plus, we did that project with Velamo. If you're interested, I should take you out there and show.
You talking about Wilkinson?
What's that?
You talking about Wilkinson?
It was down. Let's see, upstream of Wilkinson, right adjacent to this. If you look at the yellow, it's on the north point. We worked with Velamo, Army Corps, and DNR, and we excavated a large pond.
It's past the agricultural buildable.
Yes, well, it's on the kind of the southeast corner of it. It actually touches the agricultural area. It's right in that confluence where all of those merge. Anyway, we built a large pond there with the idea that it'll capture the nutrient load that's coming into North Oaks from the east, probably off of I-35E and points east of 35E. So that nutrient will settle out, and the idea is to clean up Wilkinson Lake. But it's turned out to be a large body of water, And I'm trying to use that water to irrigate Spring Farm. But I may need some help from all of you because of all the regulatory issues. And this is what Hugo figured out, is there's conflicting issues, so it's theoretically a wetland, and the DNR doesn't like you pumping water out of a wetland.
Right.
But if you were to go out there, it looks more like a pond. I mean, it's a large body of water. So anyway, that's part of what we're working on to try to figure out.
I forgot to amend your motion was to Mark's promises this is the last. Can we get that in the language somewhere?
5 on TV.
In North Oaks. Yet to be determined on the other
Just
side.
kidding, Mark.
I will be back to develop Wiper Township. Hopefully you're excited about the industrial.
The industrial site, yep.
It's
Don't forget the conservation easement up on the north part of that
The
property.
trees in the
yeah.
northwest. Yeah. Okay.
Don't forget that, or you will never hear the end
Oh,
of it.
no, you start rolling that over, it's going to be,
well, thank you. I don't want to take any more of your time than need be, but
all right, thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Mark?
thank you.
Did we vote on that?
Yep. We voted and he tried to interrupt, remember?
A couple times.
Wouldn't let him. All right, we have no other added agenda items. Open time, and it looks like an empty house. Need a motion to receive agenda materials and supplements.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I need a motion to adjourn at 8:01.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Question, are these two complexes here, are they looped?